Time is 8:13. Welcome back. The United States Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to deport Venezuelan migrants under a wartime law, but it says they have to get a court hearing before that happens. President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, the AEA, for the first time since World War II. It allowed the Trump administration to deport people who they claim are gang members. Hundreds of migrants were flown to a prison in El Salvador last month, which included a Maryland man mistakenly deported for what they thought was part of a gang. Another legal battle is in motion now for his return home. Joining us this morning, our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, good morning, my friend. All right, so we got a couple different issues here. So the first thing I want to talk about, set up this 18th century wartime law that explains this deportation process.
In a nutshell, it's really that we should be at war. It should be some type of alien invasion, and because of that, the president is authorized to deport and go around the typical deportation process and remove these folks without having any type of due process. That's basically, in a nutshell, what that says. Okay. And so how do you get there? The Trump administration, in this case, as early on, targeted these gangs, these Mexican gangs, these Venezuelan gangs, and any other gang that said, look, these folks are now bringing drugs into this country, smuggling people into this country, and so now they are terrorists, they are invading, and they're alien enemies against this country. War is being waged against this country by these cartels, and it's because now we're at war with them. I can utilize this. The court is agreeing with that argument, it's only saying that that these folks need to have a hearing, or at least have opportunity to have a hearing. When we had this first couple plane loads, no one except for 4 or 5 individuals out of all the planes that went over there had an opportunity to raise an opportunity to say, I'm not a part of a gang. I had nothing to do with a gang, and they should be entitled to some type of due process, and that's what the court said. But I mean, we have multiple pots that we can look at and talk about with all of these hearings, but that's just one aspect of it. The other larger one is, as you mentioned in the intro, the deporting the guy that actually should not have been deported, and they've already owned and said that we've made a mistake. That's something that's, I think, even more troubling than the other one.
So you've got this 30-year-old father, Garcia, who was actually protected by a ruling in 2019 from an immigration judge because he was protected from deportation. There were death threats against his family for a food business that he had. So then the Trump administration alleges, there's a picture of him right there, alleges that this man Garcia was a part of the notorious MS-13 gang, which we're finding out he's not. So what's happening in this process here?
This case is extremely convoluted. It's extremely problematic, and I put this one in a couple of pots. So you have the initial hearing itself. You have what happened at the post-hearing in appeals, and then you had the aftermath of the individuals on the part of the government that have been suspended based on their actions. So talking about the individual hearing, you addressed the one part. He went in front of an immigration judge. One of my buddies is an immigration judge down in Texas. We went to law school together. He's now does this part. So that process is a lengthy process for immigration judge to put a withhold order on you saying you can't leave. It's not something that he just decided and popped out of a hat. There's an actual hearing. They go through a process, and those protections are afforded. So you have that judge that does that. Then you have a United States District Court judge that says, you know what, you guys did something wrong. You need to bring this person back. Gives an order to the government that you guys have to bring this person back, and puts a deadline on it. So what does the Trump administration do? Well, they appeal it to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals for the 4th District says, you know what? You guys are wrong. You have to also bring him back. We unanimously, all 3 of the judges on the panel said unanimously, you all have to bring him back. The panel was unanimous that the district court judge's order to facilitate the effectual return of the plaintiff must occur by Monday night, 11:59. The United States government has no legal authority to snatch a person who is lawfully present in the States off the streets, remove him from the country without due process. And the government's contention otherwise in its argument that the federal courts are powerless to intervene is unconscionable. Last part that I'll read from there. The judge said this, that you guys may think that I look at this as a simple one. I do not. I think it's, however, straightforward. The government screwed up. The government has admitted that it screwed up, and now it must clean up its mistake. That's from the Court of Appeals. That's pretty clear. So now we fast forward to what happened right after this. The Supreme Court says, okay, we'll stay this. So after the U.S. District Court judge spoke, after the Court of Appeals has spoken, They have stayed this. So then folks are saying, oh, we've got to win for the Trump administration. You got to understand what a stay is. It's not saying that we don't agree with what these judges have said. We're saying because this is an emergency, because the petitioners, the government in this case is saying, we want you to review this really fast, we're going to pause, stay, stop for a moment what these judges have ordered until we have an opportunity to thoroughly review the case. Ultimately, do I think they come to the same decision? Yes. But now they have stayed it because they want to review it fully. So when folks are saying, hey, the Trump administration got it right, that's an inaccurate reading of what happened, because you've had 3 judges, an immigration law judge, a U.S. District Court judge, and a Court of Appeals. So actually 5 judges have heard this matter so far, and all 5 have said the government needs to keep this person in this country, and we've got it wrong.
Holy cow, Khalif. Okay, so back to those buckets at the beginning we were talking about. There's a couple different ones that we're talking through here. It seems like a partial win here, because you got the Trump administration that's saying we can't allow deportations to continue, but then you've got the other side, like the ACLU, that's saying this is also a win for us because we want due process. That's what these clients, that's what they deserve. But what's interesting is the conservative majority, they said that these challenges, they don't want them to take place in Washington. They have to take place in Texas courts.
Well, and that's what they're saying, is they're talking about this cherry picking of jurisdictions and making sure that you do it in the place where the incident happened. Well, that would take something called a change of Congress. Congress would have to change and rewrite the way our U.S. District Court's laws are handled now. A person can bring a claim in any jurisdiction that they choose. It doesn't have to be where the incident occurred. That's one manner. But it can actually be where I reside. Because currently, if I bring a lawsuit against you and you're in Texas and I'm in California, if it's inconvenient for me to bring it in California, I can bring it in California. What if we got an accident in Utah? I can bring it in Utah. There are a number of manners that I can get to the proper venue. And so what they're asking is to change the way our courts are actually constructed. And that would take not just the president making a decision or a judge making a decision. It would take Congress making a decision, because that's how our court system has been set up. These are inferior courts, one Supreme Court, then Court of Appeals, then U.S. District Courts. All those inferior courts are given their power through the Supreme Court, who gets their power through Congress.
We just got started. My head is already hurting. I need some Advil and some water. My gosh, this is a lot to go through. All right, Khalif, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. We're going to have you back a little bit later on this morning.